Hello, welcome to the Irish Independent. Shamrock Rovers have done it. They have progressed to the Champions League's second qualifying round after a rather remarkable 2-1 win over Icelandic champions Vikingur Reykjavik. Dan McDonnell was at Tallaght Stadium this evening, and Dan, Stephen Bradley said before this game that his side don't practice penos before European ties, and I'm not sure if their Icelandic opponents did either. A remarkable finish to that game.
That's extraordinary, yeah. I mean, I will say to Nikolai Hansen, like, he did stroll up looking quite confident. I mean, people will probably have seen this penalty by now, or they'll see it. People will see it in the next 24 hours. I mean, yeah, I mean, he strolls up. He does send Leon Poles the wrong way and just sends it the wrong side of the post. So he's the club captain. He has already scored. He's come off the bench and scored. I mean, these games are so important. Like, these, you just can't emphasize the importance of these games. And I think sometimes, like, you can maybe forgive some of the low quality and the mistakes because the stakes are so high. Like, it's such a gateway game. Like, if you win this tie, it gives you a great security in terms of your European campaign. It gives you 3 goals at group stage football. And to have this situation where Rovers really from 2-0 up, it would have been a story of them throwing it away if that penalty is scored. And with the 10 men, they lose an extra time. But the margins are fine at this level. And I mean, they don't get any finer than that, really. And that goes the wrong side of the post and maybe changes the complexion of Rovers' season financially. It maybe changes the complexion of the next 6, 12, 18 months of the club in terms of decisions that are made. And it all sort of can be traced back to that penalty in the corner of the ground that I'm looking at here.
It's really incredible end to that game. Johnny Kenny with a perfect start for Rovers, 2 goals in the first half, but then Jack Byrne gets sent off in the second half, and they kind of made harder work of it than they might have liked compared to going in at half time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, like, to be fair, I think, you could argue they played a perfect sort of 30-35 minutes or so, in the sense that they probably knew from last week they could hurt these on the counter-attack, hurt Vikingur on the counter-attack. They got lucky in the second, third minute. Vikingur started the game very strong. They were backed into odds-on before the game. I know betting is, like, as a measure of anthem, but there was obviously serious confidence behind Vikingur, maybe a lot of the territorial dominance they had last week, but Rovers felt they could hurt them on the counter. They did. They scored 2 goals from that method. Dylan Watts brilliant for both goals. Kenny making up for last week. That was top class first finish, and then the second one was clever. Maybe a bit more luck required, but still a very good finish. And yeah, they had a position of control, but to be honest, like, some of the issues they've had, I mean, there's two things. Some of the issues they've had this season, plus probably the pressure, the situation shone through. I think probably both of them aligned. I think physically they struggle in certain areas. I mean, Jack Byrne got a second yellow. I think he was probably getting a bit tired. It's a bit of a tired tackle. Obviously, would be frustrated. He'd be frustrated. Then he got the earlier yellow for throwing the ball away, and they're obviously getting a bit annoyed with the English-based officials. With certain decisions later on, a lot of yellow cards accrued. But I also think they picked up some of their bookings from just being under a bit of pressure and needing to make fouls. And they do, like, Ferrugia come on, Dara Burns come on, gives them a bit of energy. But obviously, when you go down to 10, the energy levels are drained even more. But I mean, you were watching the game. It looked like they'd ridden the storm. Poles made 1 block. He caught 1 ball late. You think this is it, but it's 1 more ball into the area. It's actually a definite penalty. With VAR, we were thinking there might be a handball or something, because there is VAR here, but you watch it back and it's like, no, that's completely cut and dried. Maybe there was talk of a push in the build-up, but I don't think it's conclusive enough to change it. But I mean, I guess, look, we're analysing that to death if the penalty is scored. I'm sure Stephen Bradley's going mad about it if it's scored, but it's not. So they survive. They play Sparta Prague next week.
As I said, they play Sparta Prague next week in the second round, and 6 more European games at the very, very least to come for Shamrock Rovers. But just in terms of, Dan, what this means in terms of financials, in terms of the permutations, the guaranteed Conference League playoff, just let people know what this result means for Shamrock Rovers over the next few weeks.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, they're guaranteed now 1.7 million from Europe, as opposed to around 800, 900,000. So, obviously that's a big difference. And they have 3 shots at group stage football. If they win one of those ties, that doubles that amount, really. possibly closer to 4 million because the money's gone up a little bit. And obviously there'll be costs and bonuses and certain things. But like the fact is, like the club lost over €2 million last year. They don't look like regaining the title this year. It's not dead, but it's still, it's unlikely, you would have to say. So as a result, their starting block in Europe next year will be a lot smaller. So as a consequence, they need to make the most of this year. So I just can't calculate. Like this is the biggest game of their year. It's the biggest 90 minutes of the year, 98 minutes of the year, and they've survived. And in many respects, like I said, you could pick apart issues of the performance, but there's obviously a degree of pressure that comes with it. And maybe they've got away with one a little bit at the end. But this means a hell of a lot to this football club in the next 12 to 18 months. There's absolutely no doubt about that. That sometimes it's hyperbole, sometimes it's exaggerated. It's not exaggerated.
It does for sure. An absolute massive night for Shamrock Rovers. Dan, just finally, all eyes be on Sparta Prague next week, but there's the small matter of an FA Cup tie with Bohemians at Dalymount on Friday. What an intriguing game.
Yeah, all the Bow staff are here tonight. Big game for their season. I guess if Rovers had lost tonight, they would have still gone to the Conference League, but still, maybe the pressure's off a bit, but obviously I think, physically they're still going to be flagging. They're obviously need to get some bodies back. I mean, they're going to struggle against Prague if they don't get some bodies back. So it's a big game for them. It's a big week for everyone. You obviously have the two clubs on Thursday trying to see off teams from Gibraltar. They're big games too, but probably for Rovers and Bows, their seasons are sort of hanging by a thread, you could have argued, in the last couple of weeks. And okay, this is the much bigger game this week for Rovers, but they've still had issues in the cup in recent years. And there's certainly they're not going to be toning down the intensity for Friday, that's for sure.
Shamrock Rovers' European journey continues after a rather remarkable night at Tallaght Stadium. Dan, that's great. Thanks for joining us. You can keep up to date with all the latest League of Ireland news and reports with the Irish Independent. Thanks for watching.